Hi, I'm Shanta Maharaj. My practice is successful mindset strategies. I'm from South Africa. I used to be Pietermaritzburg, so you're wondering where I am now. I've relocated to Gordons Bay, Western Cape. My professional life is that of a counselor, a transformational coach. I also am an author of short stories. I write poetry, and I do leadership workshops. Academically, yes, I've reached that awful stage of the master's degree and PDF's gone in, so I'm smiling about that. I have a lovely young lady with me today, and she is actually going through her stress of PhD at the moment. So to have given me time, I am so grateful. Richa Deokar is going to introduce herself. She's remarkable. At this young age, the things that she has done, some of us can only dream of. So, Richa, introduce yourself. It's always so good to see you.
Oh, thank you so much. That was such a lovely introduction. And I've always been in awe of you ever since I met you
Thank you.
last year. Yes. So, namaste everyone. My name is Richa Deokar. I am from India and I live in the state of Maharashtra and in the city called Pune. So, my to tell you a little bit about myself, I was always into academics, but my whole idea of getting into academics was to get a good job, to study well, to get a good job, then have a good lavish lifestyle, and nothing beyond that, which is conventional thinking, which is what most of the people think.
Mm-hmm.
But and I went on to work with an international organization. I was the national outreach manager for 4 years into their fundraising department. And then I realized, and I landed this job when I had not even graduated. And back then I was doing my graduation in mass media. I specialized in journalism. And I landed this job. And it, although it gave me a sense of giving back to society and that I am actually being of help to society in some way or the other, I was not content. I was not content because I didn't know the money we are raising. I don't know where it is going. I'm not able to see it. And so I think that realization when it hit me was also the point when I realized that this has brought a very, very profound epiphany to me, and I do not want to continue doing this, which is what led me to join my father. My father, his name is Vinayak Devkar, and he runs a very special school in the city of Pune, where we are educating children of prisoners, sex workers, domestic wagers, domestic helpers, and daily wagers. And a lot of them are even orphans. So we are at a strength of about 525 right now. And when we started the school, my father is an orphan. He was orphaned when he was 3 months old. His birth parents left him on the steps of an orphanage in a city in Maharashtra. And from there on, he was adopted by a very, very middle class, not even middle class, a low middle class family who themselves used to work in stone quarries. And that is how they earned their living. And the biggest blow to him, because in India, there's a culture people get married young. If they are not into education, then the next step is just marry them off. So my father and my mother both were victims to that because they could not study further. My father failed his board examinations, and he spent a lot of his time just scouting for jobs. A lot of his time went into selling lottery tickets, and then he waited tables at a restaurant. And by then he was 16. He had lost both of his adoptive parents as well.
Mm-hmm. So you come from a lineage of suffering. Is that why you understand suffering so well? Richa, I've lost you. Are you there? I lost you
I'm
for a
sorry.
while.
Yes, it's been raining here and I lost Wi-Fi connection.
Okay, that's fine. The important thing is you're back. I'm not going to stop and re-record this because what you said is very valuable, right? So you came from a background of where dad had suffered a lot. Was it dad who was behind you with education?
Absolutely. We lived in the slums, and my mother dropped out when she was in her fourth class. But my parents were married when my father was 16, my mother was 14. And then he had three children, myself and two of my younger siblings. But I think why he stands out is because of his ability to think that I do not want my children to go through this. I do not want my children to go through the same ordeals or the same suffering I went through, or the deprivation of education, which is the foundation of everything.
Absolutely. Now,
And by the time,
Richa, the one thing I'm thinking of, and this comes to me, and this is why we're actually here. On Friday was the 131st anniversary of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, and I'm going to use that name and not the Mahatma because that's who he was at that point in time. Being thrown off the train in my hometown that I used to live in and where we had the pleasure of meeting, Pietermaritzburg, and it was an icy, cold winter's night, right? That was the start of this great icon who later was called Mahatma. Now, Gandhiji, his whole philosophy is peace and nonviolence. Your father is an epitome of it because he was orphaned, he was abandoned, but he chose the path of peace and nonviolence. Do you think in this day and age, with two major wars taking place at the moment, and I know your passion and my passion for women and children, and I think that's what keeps us in communication, do you think that we can take peace and violence and try and encourage people who are going through these awful times to adopt the Gandhian philosophy? How practical do you think it is for this time, this 21st century, this chaotic world?
it is extremely practical. And the thing about truth and non-violence, these two principles of Mahatma Gandhi, is that they are both pragmatic. They are not dogmatic, which is why he was able to do what he did. So the when we try to dismiss Gandhian thought, which is very much in vogue right now, where people do not even want to listen to the name of Gandhi, and that's a very sad state. It is also because for people, this is something that cannot be achieved. A common man cannot achieve. So now they have both demonized him and also put him on a pedestal. They know this is something we cannot do, but somehow he's also the villain. And that is why it is important that people try to first understand him before making any judgment about him. It is okay. And I always tell people, you do not have to like Gandhi, but you make that decision or you come to that conclusion only when you have read him.
Absolutely.
Because that would be a major.
We have to adopt the attitude of agree to disagree, or else we are never going to get the message of peace and violence and non-violence across. If we are going to be fighting and saying you've got to believe in his philosophy, we are not going to get it across. We have to change our strategy and also understand the other side, how they feel, right? Now, with Gandhi and education, we've just had our elections. I rest my case. I don't want to say too much. And you've had your elections, right? What do you think about our leaders and what they're doing about encouraging peace and nonviolence in education? Are they doing it correctly, or are they doing something as bizarre as taking wars in different countries and inculcating hatred in our children's minds to take sides instead of them being taught that war is wrong, violence is wrong. What's your comment?
Okay. So these are all what we are in right now is a hellhole of our own making.
Yeah.
Now there are decision makers, there are leaders. It's because we are also part of the problem. It's
We
because
vote
we
them
as
in.
people have supported. We have also supported them. Now we do identify abuse. We understand that we are being tormented. We understand we are going through something that is not sitting well with what we believe in, but we are still party to it. We are still witness to it.
Mm-hmm. So
So now,
how do we take it to the children and the women in the homes? How do we encourage them?
I believe women do not have to study Gandhi to become Gandhians. They are inherently Gandhians. And it's because of the way they conduct themselves. I really think women, if they are led into a particular direction, they'll be able to take this up much better than men in the world. Because women inherently, I mean, love comes to them naturally. Mm-hmm. Not to say that it doesn't come to men, but obviously, by virtue of that gender, we are wired that way.
Okay, so you say we're wired that way, and yet I've actually come across women who incite violence in a very tactful way. You know, they would bring the story of you got to help these people. And then at the same time, it's you've got to fight back. So, what do we teach our people? How do we do it? And what's concerning me most of all is the casualties of war are mostly women and children, right? And while these great leaders are fighting and arguing and doing all these things that they think is magnificent, it's over a piece of land. The biggest casualties are the women and children. I'll just bring up something in Ukraine. At the moment, only 1/3 of those displaced, I'm not going to say misplaced, I'm going to say displaced children due to war are getting any form of education. What happens after that? What is your thought?
It has a lot to do with the way humanity has progressed in the past centuries, because we are conditioned to believe now there is maybe subconsciously, I don't know, or even consciously, there is a hierarchy where men are at the top, then come women, then come children. That is why they are completely sidelined. So their problems are not problems, and that is why we don't even work towards them. Where there is war happening everywhere, and it is true, children and women are victims not only in wars, but even in social conditions. Yeah. Even in social conditions, if a man decides one day he does not want to be with his wife, he just feels entitled. He feels entitled to leave them. He will not think about the consequences. He will not think about the ramifications, or how that might affect his family and how that might affect the generations to come. Because now you have completely traumatized a set of people that really banked upon you, that really counted on you. And now the line is going to be so long, the chain is going to be so long, then you know, there's no coming back from it. Yeah, for many people.
Mm-hmm. There's no ricochet effect that you could come back from it. Definitely not. Definitely. And what bothers me as well is women are very often raped during war. Very often. Yes. And those children born of that, right? So we know that the children who are born out of incest, rape, anything, are always the ones that suffer the most because society looks down on them. Now, here again, Gandhian philosophy, right? So how do we take it? You're doing a magnificent job there. But let's look at the bigger world. We don't have a world full of Richa Deokars. You know, we don't have everyone with an amazing father like yours. So how do we take this across without sounding like we're selling an NGO concept? Where do we start? Do we start writing books? What do we do?
The key to understanding this is understanding that there is a problem. There is conflict. The acknowledgement has to be there for us to be able to work in that direction. People, I don't think, are aware that there is a problem. They think this is organic, this is how things should be. And that is why there is nothing happening towards, now you and I, we are able to identify. And like-minded people like us are able to identify there is a problem here, we need to address this, and there has to be something that we can do about it. Now, this is really on an individual level. Even for me, I understood that I do not have to look at Gandhi as this God that I want to worship, I want to, but I want to learn things from him. And Peter Maritzburg, personally, for me, was extremely life-changing. Just to be there, to understand what a person, one single man could do is just mind-boggling.
Absolutely.
Now, we do not have to set our goals that high, that I want to go out and make some change in the world. Why don't we start with ourselves?
You know,
that can solve a lot of problems.
You brought up something that's very, very important, Richa, when you talk about not looking at Gandhi as a god. Now, this is something that I remember Professor Vinay Lal also mentioned, that people have foolishly deified Gandhiji. When Gandhiji was a barrister at law, he had great education, he was a revolutionary. And that's who he was, but he did it in a passive way. And that's what people, I love all the spiritual aspect of it. I respect that greatly. But I also feel that we need to take the power of this man and try and use it in this day and age. What is your comment on that?
Yes, again, that has to come from a lot of self-realization. Now, the self-realization happens when there's a social realization.
Absolutely.
When you look outside is when you are compelled to look inside, and it all starts from you. So if we talk about women, we talk about children, we talk about wars, we talk about the economy or politics, we first have to understand that we somewhere are a part of it. Now, being a part of it, how do I make it better? And not be party to something that is unjust, that I know in the long run is going to inflict pain on my people, on my society. And that feeling will only come when we think of ourselves as not a part of society, but a miniature of the society. You are a small part of the society, you're not part of it. That way, you are a small miniature of the society. Absolutely. So that is why we need people. And now talking about problems, we have to come into the spirit, the attitude of confrontation. Confrontation is not going to war. Confrontation is not going to war. Confrontation is believing in the goodness of the other person while maintaining your stand where you know you have a problem. But now what we do is we try to villainize people, we try to demonize them, and somewhere the message gets lost. We make it about the person and not the problem.
Yeah. And then we lose track completely. We go in circles and all that kind of thing. Like what bothers me as well, is I love the groups that are formed and all that kind of thing. But I often ask myself, what is the objective? Okay, so you remember the day, you remember the 2nd of October, you remember the January date. But what lessons do we take from there? Now, here comes another one for you. And I think being in India, you're in the best position to discuss this because I see it here with the South Africans as well. I've seen it in the Middle East as well when I lived there for 6 years. Richa, the role of the older woman in the home. let's say the mother-in-law or the granny-in-law, right? What is her role in filtering down these teachings? Not by saying you have to go and worship Gandhi. No, 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 no. We don't want that. Do they realize the empowerment that comes with him? What is their role?
Yes, elderly people in any system, in any structure, play an important role. And that is how you are conditioned for the rest of your life, with additional beliefs and additional opinions that you might form on the way. That will be your own. But there is a foundation, there is a crux to everything. I know what I am doing has been passed down from my father. Because even in my worst nightmares, I would not have thought I would ever be talking about Gandhi. And there was a point in my life, my father was influenced, very, very deeply touched and moved by Gandhian thought when he was on his way to end his life. Because that is what life kept throwing things at him, life kept throwing stones at him, and that was his downtime. So now I know I have to take inspiration from this person. But for me to be able to look at him like that, I have to give credit, or not even credit, but acknowledge the fact that something brought that into him.
Yeah.
And elders, there is a problem, not problem per se, but with experience, we become rigid in our thoughts. There are calcified ideas, there are calcified beliefs that we are just not willing to shake off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you know what
So now,
annoys me? Sorry, Richa. I was reading some documentation some years ago. I'm going back about 8 to 10 years, and this was about a certain culture, where the woman has no say, and I'm not in a position to mention exactly which one, but there's an attitude in those homes. The mother-in-law feels that she has earned the same respect that her sons and her husband deserves. And she uses a simple thing of, I've done my time. In order for you to be respected, you have to go through this to be respected. We know that's still carrying on in India to a large extent. It's still carrying on here in South Africa. It's carrying on in many, many cultures. Even some European cultures, it's still carrying on. How do we break that?
yes, I think this generation especially has become so self-aware in terms of what they want. They know how to draw lines, they know how to draw boundaries, they know that whatever my mother-in-law thinks I should be doing is not something I want to do.
Exactly.
And that is also one of the reasons why there is growing distance between families. Now, India is has always been a family where known. I mean, this culture is known to have large families. Now they have all broken down. Now there are nuclear families.
Mm-hmm.
That also has to say, because we never thought. Now our exposure to the world is so much. We understand what we want. We are trying to understand ourselves. We are trying to understand ourselves as individuals, and we know what we want. So when I say I want to be respected, then yes, that's because I know I am going to be able to give you the same respect. So this is where I
Absolutely.
draw the line.
Absolutely. Respect is a two-way street. I always say, show people why they should respect you. People who don't know me don't understand that my demeanor is not cold, but I'm blessed that I command respect. And I do it because I want you to respect me so that I can respect you in turn. That's all, it's a
Yes,
natural thing. Now, for me, I was brought up that way. That seems to be, that was part of family dynamics. Whether you were a girl or a boy, you were given equal opportunity and you had to prove yourself and make the best of it. So
correct,
here
correct.
am I'm 64 and I'm talking to you and I'm complaining about the older generation. So here's a challenge I have as well. Women of my age who are mothers-in-law or who are going to be mothers-in-law, some find me very strange because I believe that I will not interfere in the life of a child. If the child is not doing anything wrong, who am I to dictate? And I hold that the same. Now, here we go back to Gandhian philosophy. Gandhian philosophy does not praise one religion above another, right? So I get questioned about my respect for all religions. You know, I have absolute respect for all, and I take the best out of all, because all say do good and be good. I have people around my age, my contemporaries, questioning me and stating I'm too liberated. What do you think about that?
Yes. So now I have to use this term, binaries. There are binaries in the world, just like, I mean, there's day and night, there's black and white, and there are obviously opposites to everything.
Mm-hmm.
Now it is up to us, really, what we look at.
Yeah.
It's either you either celebrate the differences, or you make a fuss about it, or you just find a common ground where you say, you know what, you are a different person, I am a different person,
That's it.
but we are people nonetheless. And we cannot be mirror images of each other, because
Yes.
if we keep doing that, and again, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind.
Right.
If I decide to reciprocate what you are putting me through, maybe you do not know, maybe you think things should go a certain way, they're not going that way. In case of mothers-in-law around the world, because they have this a very special relationship with their sons.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole idea that now there is a different woman who is also going to be important to the son,
Yeah.
that is so difficult to stomach for people that they try to pull the daughters-in-law down. Whereas the problem may not even be that big. But the fact that now there is insecurity that my
Insecurity.
son,
You know,
yes, my son now,
I've said
yes,
to mothers of sons, aren't you happy that two women love your son? His wife and you? I mean, isn't he fortunate that two women want to, want the best for him?
yes, absolutely. And even though these are dynamics of love, these are dynamics of family, they both have different roles to play in the son's
Yes.
life.
Yes, absolutely.
You
You know,
cannot say, you cannot,
we go to Kasturba, right? And how loyal she was, and with such grace she accepted everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. She was an educated woman in her own right. She was no uneducated somebody. I mean, she was a learned woman. But these are the things that bother me. And then, of course, we have this whole thing of, oh, I am Gandhian. Walk your talk, walk with humility, stand for those who are being sidelined, things like that. Respect everybody, whether they Hindu, Muslim, Christian, whatever. Respect everybody. And I often say, if you say you truly respect God, then you respect everybody. Because I don't think we were manufactured in different factories. I really don't think heaven up there has different factories where they're manufacturing different people, so that comes to me. Richa, I'm going to just read something, and this is from the Odisha government magazine, right? And it says here, I like this very much. Gandhiji's vision was to create an India where all citizens would attain a keen sense of personal worth, dignity, and efficiency through an educational system that would strengthen them the desire for self-improvement and social service in cooperative community. Our education systems are failing. They are not doing that. And then this was another one that got to me very much, where he mentions religion. He was opposed to literary training. physical exercise or religious instruction, but he opposed literary training without vocational training. That's what he opposed. He opposed physical exercises without spiritual development. And he opposed religious instruction without practical social service. What is your closing comment on that?
Yes. So Mahatma Gandhi's response to this education was something called Nai Talim.
Yeah.
Nai Talim is an alternative to British education, and that promotes 3 H's: your head, your heart, and your hands. So you now obviously when he believed in this in education that focuses on your mind, your body, and your soul, an education that will help bring all of these together, that will help you realize all of these, the existence of all of these together. So now I think it's just too sad that a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old has to go sit in a computer room and learn the basics of computers. I personally feel, why don't we send them to playgrounds, or why don't we engage them in something that does not have to involve a screen? Why don't we engage them in something?
There's so much we can do with discovery learning. You know, the learning by discovery, by flipping the classroom, we can do it. I think the problem is, and I'm saying this from what I found with my research and the attitude of some people with regard to AI as well. I don't think Gandhiji would ever have disapproved modern technology, but it's the way that it is used. And if we want to keep up to the times with the next generation, we need to get our act in order as well. Do you or don't you agree? We need to show them that technology is a tool to something else. You know, you can see the world in it, but come out and feel the world as well.
Yes. The fact that you and I are able to connect is a blessing. It is a blessing. You sitting in South Africa, I am in India, and we are discussing this. Definitely is a blessing. But if we don't know where to abuse it and where to use it, then that is where the conflict is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think when we look at the 4th industrial revolution, we look at climate change, etc. And, you know, and climate change, this is something that just makes me laugh. So we don't want to use fossil fuels. We don't want to travel. But yet we still want to travel across the world for, you know, for example, conferences, right? If you go for 1 in a year, 2 in a year, that's fine. But my concern is, look what we're doing online, Richa. You and I are doing this perfectly. And this is going to be one of many. This is just basically, you know, with what Friday, the 7th of June, the night that changed the world, and how much of impact is it really having? But if you look at what we can do, and we're not using that amount of fossil fuels. In doing this, we're not creating a great carbon footprint. So there is place for technology, but it's how it's used, really. Richa, parting shot from you. What would you like to say to end this?
I think there should not be, like I said, optimization is the key. We should know what to use when, no more or no less of anything. The balance has to be found. Otherwise, the talks about climate, the talks about war, the talks about these crises is going to go on. These will always go on.
Absolutely.
Because now we have reached extremes. We are veering away. Extremes as in, we are not in this direction, we are in this direction.
Yeah.
And we are going this way.
Yeah.
Definitely. So we are just pulling. Yeah, we are just pulling on each other.
Game of tug of war.
Walking to.
Absolute game of tug of war. So I think this was fantastic. I enjoyed talking to you. And I think we touched on things that can be brought up in our future topics. But this is our first of many of these. And those who do want to watch us in future know that we're going into very challenging thinking, critical thinking, and we're not going to, we might say things that people don't agree with, but our thought is to create critical thinking. Our thought is to create questioning minds, and that's what we want to do. And in that, we want to also say that we can differ, but retain peace and nonviolence. We don't have to get angry. I'd like to conclude with the reading, a sum up, right? Let us quote Gandhiji himself from an article in his Views paper, Harijan of 9th July 1938. I am not an enemy of higher education, but I'm an enemy of higher education as it is given now. Under my scheme, there will be more and more better libraries, laboratories, research institutions. Under it, we should have an array of chemists, engineers, and other experts who would be real servants of the nation and answer the varied and growing requirements of a people who are becoming increasingly conscious of their rights and wants. All of these experts will speak, not in a foreign language, but in a language of the people. The knowledge gained by them will be the common property of the people. There will be truly original work instead of mere imitation. And the cost will be evenly and justly distributed. A dream you and I will not give up on. And I will take that dream to my grave, that education will be given to all. No matter how little I do it, but I will impart wisdom wherever I go. Really.
Never underestimate the power of sowing a seed.
Absolutely. Never ever underestimate it. Richa, thank you so much. It was so nice. And as I said, this is going to be the start of many. You know, we rather have these short ones, and we're going to keep on just giving sparks for people to think of, you know, and to move away from seeing Gandhi as this God kind of figure, but see him as an inspiration to change the world in whatever little way we can. Thank you so much, Richa. Have a lovely evening. I know it's late in India. Thank you, thank you, thank you, my dear girl. Namaste, and we shall meet again. Thank you, Richa. Bye-bye.
Bye.